Lebanon's gamble, the push to disarm Hezbollah, and the risks of national collapse. A nation at the edge. Lebanon's leaders have set a deadline. By the end of this year, all weapons must be brought under the control of the state. On paper, it is a condition of a US brokered deal meant to stabilize the country and unlock badly needed economic aid. In reality, it is a demand that cuts to the heart of Lebanon's fragile identity, the demand to disarm Hezbollah. For decades, Hezbollah has been more than a militia. It is a political party, a regional proxy, a social services provider, and to many in southern Lebanon, a shield against Israeli aggression. Now, with the Lebanese army tasked to enforce this disarmament, the question is whether this is a plan or a fantasy that risks pushing the country back into civil war. The US hand and the South Lebanon gamble. Washington has played a central role. US envoy Tom Barrack dangled promises of an economic zone in southern Lebanon, a carrot to replace the stick of weapons. The pitch is clear. Give up your arms and watch your war-torn villages turn into hubs of reconstruction and prosperity. But in the south, where whole towns remain uninhabitable and families sift through rubble to recover photos of the dead, the proposal has been received with scorn. To many, it looks less like aid and more like blackmail. We cannot rebuild until you disarm, is the implicit bargain. For communities still displaced by Israeli bombardments, the US offer feels like a cruel irony. The same patrons funding Israeli strikes now promising amusement parks on the ashes of their homes. Barrack's now infamous slip, calling Lebanese journalists animalistic before offering a half-hearted apology, only reinforced Hezbollah's narrative that the US and its allies treat Lebanon as inferior, a client state to be disciplined rather than an equal partner. Hezbollah's red line. Hezbollah's official stance is unequivocal. There will be no negotiations about its weapons while Israel continues to occupy Lebanese land and bomb its villages. To surrender arms, the group argues, would be to surrender Lebanon's sovereignty. The weapon that honored us, the weapon that protects us, will not be given up, Hezbollah declared. To its supporters, disarmament is not just a political concession, but an existential threat. To its enemies, Hezbollah's arms are the single greatest obstacle to building a functional Lebanese state. A weakened giant. The timing of this push is not coincidental. Hezbollah has been weakened militarily, politically, and symbolically. The assassination of its longtime leader, Hassan Nasrallah, robbed the movement of a figure whose aura once seemed untouchable. Israel's pager attack, which rigged communication devices of thousands of Hezbollah members and killed or maimed fighters and civilians alike, was a devastating blow. Relentless airstrikes have destroyed infrastructure, arms caches, and homes across southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley. Yet Hezbollah is not dead. Even at its weakest, the group continued to fire hundreds of rockets at Israel until the November ceasefire. On the ground, municipal elections in the south this year still showed overwhelming loyalty to the party. For many Shia families, Hezbollah remains the only institution paying salaries and supporting widows of fighters, a patronage system largely sustained by Iranian funding. The economics of disarmament. The Lebanese government's plan does not answer the most basic question. If Hezbollah disarms, who pays the salaries? Fighters receive steady incomes from Tehran, lifelines in a country where banks have collapsed and unemployment soars. Families of slain or injured fighters continue to receive support, injecting hard cash into an economy otherwise paralyzed by debt and shortages. Integrating Hezbollah fighters into the Lebanese army is one floated solution, but that risks upending the country's sectarian balance. An influx of thousands of Shia militants into the ranks could tilt the institution's identity and ideology in dangerous ways. Without a replacement payroll, disarmament could collapse not just Hezbollah, but entire communities dependent on its networks of schools, clinics, and stipends. The trust deficit. The heart of the problem is trust, or the absence of it. For Hezbollah and its base, Israel is not a hypothetical threat. It is a force that has repeatedly invaded, bombed, and displaced them. The idea that the US could restrain Israel if Hezbollah disarmed is, to them, a fantasy. They point to Syria, where a post-Assad government sought rapprochement with Israel and the West, only to face daily bombings and raids. They point to Gaza, where ceasefire agreements have been shattered within weeks. They point to Netanyahu's recent talk of a greater Israel that extends into southern Lebanon. In this climate, to lay down arms is not seen as peacemaking, it is seen as suicide. What happens next? Lebanon now faces two impossible scenarios. Hezbollah will not voluntarily disarm, that much is certain. Could the Lebanese army force it to? Unlikely. Any attempt to turn the military inward would risk splitting it along sectarian lines, igniting another civil war. What remains most likely is a drawn-out standoff, the army making token seizures of small weapons caches, the government claiming progress, and Hezbollah retaining its core arsenal while buying time. It is a strategy of deferral, not resolution. But deferral has its own cost. Lebanon remains paralyzed, its economy hostage to international donors, its sovereignty contested between internal factions and external powers. A country once described as the Switzerland of the Middle East now finds itself caught between collapse and confrontation. Conclusion: Lebanon's impossible dilemma. The disarmament of Hezbollah is not merely a question of law and order, it is a question of survival for the movement, for its community, and for Lebanon itself. The push by the Lebanese government, backed by Washington, may read as a pragmatic step towards state sovereignty, but on the ground it risks deepening division, collapsing livelihoods, and sparking violence that Lebanon can no longer endure. To disarm Hezbollah without dismantling the conditions that gave birth to it, occupation, displacement, poverty, and foreign domination, is not disarmament, it is fantasy.